are
purple socks for creativity.
oh yeah, oh cute. So so good morning everyone. This is our visiting artist Jen Morrison, and she is creative director and owner founder of a company called Fox Gazelle. And I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk about her company. I can't talk about her company. So some of you have not joined me for a visiting artist before because perhaps you were absent that day. I normally have our visiting artist on Friday. Obviously today is Thursday. I am going to have another artist tomorrow, so that will be cool. But again, those of you who are new to the visiting artist, just so you know, you are welcome to interject with questions throughout. It's probably going to be about an hour. So if at any point you have questions for Jen, please feel free to unmute your mic and just, interrupt when the time is right, or you can also write your questions in the chat.
Yeah, I have the chat open so I can see it.
Okay, excellent. And we are going to have more students that are going to be rolling in, and I'm just going to let them in. So take it away, Jen.
All right, thanks. Well, hi, everyone. As Soraya said, my name is Jennifer Morrison, and I have been very close friends with Miss Brooks for 30 years or so. We met as freshmen at art school. It sounds like such a long time, but it really kind of feels like yesterday. Suddenly you're looking back like, oh my God, it's been 30 years. And I do have my own business. I've had my business, Fox Gazelle, for about 12 years. I started it with my business partner, who is someone that I met along the way at a job. I met her at an advertising company I was working for in the city. And unlike me, she wasn't quote unquote, the creative side. She was more on the business strategy side of marketing and advertising. But she's got a lot of creativity in her. So anyway, we clicked, and we worked together for this agency for a couple of years. And when we started, it was small. There was just about 5 or 6 of us. I had been, building my career as a creative director for, a number of years, but this was kind of where I really started to find, I think, a little bit more of my own way. I was leading a department at this company, and the company grew in just a couple of years. It grew a lot to, went from about 5 or 6 people to 50 people and 2 offices. And, after a while, my partner and I were like, gosh, we're doing all the work and we're not making the money, like our bosses are making the money. So we decided to quit and start our own company. And it's been 12 years. And, at first it was just the 2 of us. We did everything. We did everything from marketing a Canadian vodka to, all just sorts of small projects that we could get started on.
Can you tell us a little bit? So your company, when I describe your company to other people, to my students specifically, I describe it as a branding company.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a branding company, but it's also, it's a full service marketing company. As
what
I will, yeah. So there's lots of different types of creative jobs out there. When I started in art school, I thought I was going to be an illustrator. That was my talent. I could draw. And then while I was still in school, I got my first job as in an art department, basically at a magazine. And, this was, again, dating myself a little bit, but, no one had computers back then. Everything was sort of paste up and markups and, a way of doing things that has long been extinct. But
my students know what paste ups and markups are actually.
Well, good. It was a very interesting way to learn, but there was 1 or 2 people in that department who had like a black and white Macintosh. Like it was just, these old computers. And so I kind of latched on to that guy, and I just, it opened my eyes to this career of graphic design, which coming out of art school and realizing that being an illustrator, I mean, they're all a lot of work, but I think, being a commercial artist there was just more opportunities for me to sort of, start my career. And that's where it happened. So my business now, it has grown a lot over the past 12 years. I have 15 or so people who work for my company. Happy to say, sorry guys, but they're all women. And everyone is remote and works from home. We've always sort of had that business model of working from home. I have people who live in California. I have someone in Portland. I have someone in Kansas. A lot of them are moms with kids, but they all work really hard, and it's a really fantastic team of people. And so, my business now has evolved to a point of, we do a lot of healthcare now. It's not as sexy as some of the older clients that we might have had, but it pays well and keeps everyone really busy. And I'm very fortunate to have not had to let anyone go during this pandemic. It's been harder, I think, for everyone because, everyone had kids at home suddenly. And so they were working and dealing with distance learning. But anyway, so my company, there's a large component of branding. We do a lot of branding for companies where we develop, their corporate identity, everything from a logo, which is, I think, what most people think of when they think of branding, but there's so much more to it in terms of identifying what that company's, core offering is and what makes them different, what makes them special, and articulating that through language in addition to design. A lot of our clients now have more robust marketing programs. As I said, we do a lot of healthcare. So there's a lot of projects we do that are, developing programs to engage with different, patient communities. And then all the materials that go with that, from a website to brochures to, we do a lot of video. We don't really do, for the majority of my clients are, we focus on kind of rare diseases. So they're not, it's not like, it's not Nike. So we don't do a lot of TV commercials, but we do a lot of video within those smaller sectors.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm rambling about my company, but
Okay,
but it's been pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I can share the website in a little bit too, as well.
that would be great. I think that before you start showing us your work, maybe you can talk to us about what kind of art were you making, or how were you creative when you were in high school? And why and how did you decide to, from your art making in high school, why did you decide to go pursue art professionally and go to an art school? Most of my students are going to be going to, the ones that want to pursue art, they will be going to art programs within schools. So not a devoted art school.
Sure. Yeah.
How'd you make that leap?
So, growing up, I was always a creative kid. I like to draw, and my mom said that I was really good at it. So, there was that. But I love to draw. And it really wasn't until high school. It wasn't until I'd say 11th grade where I grew up on a town in Long Island, middle class, school district did not have a ton of money. It was a big school district, 1,000 students, this is in Brentwood, Long Island, Brentwood Ross High School. There were 2 high schools. And we had a superintendent named Manny Vega who liked art, and he put a lot of his resources and his school resources into acquiring some really awesome art teachers. And so I went into high school and I was like, wow, I can take painting class. I can take, there's a 2D design class, and there was a fashion illustration class. And I think it was that fashion illustration class. The teacher's name was Dr. Lurch, and he was an FIT graduate. I had a teacher who was a Parsons graduate. And so for this, this school was just crazy that they had so many art teachers, and they were hands down, they were the influencing factor for me to even consider an art career. Cause I was just a young kid. It was like art, you can't really do that for a living. How do you make a living out of that? And it really was those teachers and their mentorship who, opened my eyes to that as a possibility. And so through them, I was able to.
Your senior year, or was it your junior year? Or when did you start to think, okay, I'm going to do this?
It started in my junior year. I did this drawing. You might have seen it at my parents' house. It was, we were drawing from magazines, and it was this, photograph of a model, beautiful model, super dark skin, short hair. She had like African beads around her neck, and I drew it in charcoal, and it was very like a photorealism type of thing. And it was like, even I was like, oh my God, I just drew that. And that kind of got the attention of my teachers. And that just started this relationship of me being kind of like the art kid. And I don't know, just kind of started from there. I think, junior year, I might've gone on a trip to FIT, and then we got invitations to, I convinced my principal, who also liked art and had like 2 of my paintings in his office. Wow. Really cheesy paintings, like a cheesy waterfall, like not very good. But they were very supportive. And so I went to Parsons for like the Parsons fashion show. And it was just, my eyes were like open to this possibility.
So in high school, you were visiting art schools?
As in high school, I was visiting art schools, but I still didn't really think that I would, just like put all my eggs in that basket. I think that's kind of a scary thing. Like I was into theater too. I liked acting. So I was looking into Purchase, some of the SUNY schools where I could have creativity, but also study acting. But in the end, I decided that I really wanted to, be in an illustration department. I'm very lucky that my dad was supportive of that. We did not have a lot of money, so a lot of it was financed. I paid my student loans for like 20 years. I just, whatever, we made it work. I remember that my mom, she wanted to know if they were going to teach me how to type, just in case.
No, she didn't ask you.
Oh, yes, she did. Well, she didn't know either. To her, like, this was craziness that her daughter was going to go to art school. Yeah, she wanted to know if they were going to teach me how to type, just in case. I guess, because obviously the other opportunity would be secretarial work. I'm happy to say I still am a shitty typer. Sorry for the cursing. I hunt and peck, and never really learned how to type. So there's that. So I went to art school, met Miss Brooks.
Exactly. We met when we were, that was in 1988, we graduated high school, and we also started our freshman year at Parsons, and that's where we met. Mm-hmm. And the great thing, which I think art schools still do, I'm actually not positive, but our freshman year at Parsons, we had to take, it's called foundation year.
Oh yeah.
So we had to take a little bit of everything. We weren't able to choose our major until the following year.
Correct. Yes, we had life drawing, we had form and space, which was my worst. I don't like to build things 3-dimensional, not my bag. I'm much more of a flat artist. So we had form and space, we had color theory, color and design. So yeah, just sort of foundational, it was hard for some kids at school because some of them were actually came into Parsons because they wanted to study fashion. And here they are, like, with all these nude models all day long, like, and maybe not the best drawing artists, but they had to sort of get through it as well. And also, if you recall, it had a high rate of people dropping out.
Yep.
You know, that foundation year was no joke. It was a lot of work. I mean, we were up till 2, 3 in the morning every night, watching David Letterman and drinking lots of coffee and smoking cigarettes, because that's what you did in art school.
And
sort of,
and we were up that late making art. We were working on projects.
Oh yeah, yeah, completely.
It was very, very rigorous.
It was. And so it was almost like a hazing, right? Like if you made it through, then you're like, and you got through to be a sophomore and you could really choose the things that you wanted to do. It definitely got better. But also for me, you know, living on Long Island and, you know, I did not come from a creative family at all. I didn't really know anything about artists either. Like, you know, so just being exposed to New York City and living in the city and having exposure to, you know, the Met and all of these great museums and learning about, you know, artists like Picasso and Klimt and Egon Schiele, and like just artists who, you know, was so much different from any of the work that I had done before. And so it allowed us to experiment and sort of feel out, you know, what kind of style that we like the most. And again, so, you know, thinking that I was going to be an illustrator, and I do have, you know, people that we graduated with who went on to become illustrators, but there are some who became, you know, open tattoo parlors. You know, I think we have 2 friends from school who, you know, they are amazing artists, but they work in skin. You know, my work now, I would love to say that it's just creativity all day long, but it's not. There's a lot of emails, a lot of calls, a lot of client, you know, corporate boringness. But, you know, I'm still very fortunate that I mostly, you know, am creative. And I also think that there's, you know, there's ways to bring creativity into anything that you do. I mean, you could be a car salesman and bring creativity into your work, whether it's how you deliver something, or, you know, the signage you create, or the, you know, the catchy slogans, or you're a nurse but you go home and you write children's books. Like there's always a way to do it. It doesn't have to be, you know, your career. It can be hard to break into. But I think that if you do feel that there's an element of creativity in your soul, that you have to find a way to feed that some way, somehow. But I also think that there are so many different avenues you can take as a creative person, you know, and researching and exploring and asking questions. I mean, now we're living in such a different time. I mean, you can just go on YouTube and learn how to work in After Effects and Photoshop, and there's retouching, and there's, you know, typography design, and there's, you know, set building, like, you know, so one of my son's good friends is majoring in set design at Purchase, and he's doing like the coolest stuff. So there's, you know, lots of different ways that you can find a creative career and get a lot of fulfillment out of it.
Thank you.
So yeah, you're welcome.
So do you know how to share your screen?
I'm just going to press the share screen button.
Let me just make sure that I have it.
Yeah, you didn't let me. You got to let me do it.
Okay, so now you have permission has been granted.
Okay, so desktop, right? So share.
Yep.
Open. Oh, it's making me open my preferences. Hold on.
Sure. Oh yeah, you might have to give permission, perhaps.
Yeah, security and privacy. Hold on.
So as soon as you do share screen, obviously everything on your desktop will be visible. So if, you know, and also another option is I could also share my screen and pull up your website.
It's not actually.
It's not letting.
Well, I don't see anything that for me to click to, you know.
You mean in the Zoom?
No, I'd open my, it's, Zoom is clicked as, I'm not seeing any button that says
Oh,
to allow.
oh, I see
Yeah.
what you're saying.
So I don't know. Maybe we should have done this earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, bring up my website. I mean,
Exactly.
honestly, I haven't been to my own website in a while. You get so busy with the work and it becomes sort of like a secondary thing that you don't really think about much. So I don't know how updated it is.
So can you see, everyone can see my screen?
Scheduling made easy. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I will pull up I have showed your site to my students very briefly yesterday when we were talking about your arrival.
Okay.
And I'm going to go directly down here to your work.
Well, we'll go back to the homepage because it's pretty cool.
Okay. Yes, we did look at it
yesterday. We worked really hard on this homepage and getting it right.
So you just direct me.
Sure. Just scroll down. I mean, I think, to us, what we were trying to communicate here is, this notion right here, right? A brand is not a logo, it's a promise. And I think any sort of creativity, especially in commercial work, it's all about storytelling. It's all about, delivering a story, delivering that promise. And so we created this fun, parallax. You could keep scrolling.
So what is parallax? Tell me.
Parallax is a type of programming technology that allows these different layers to go over each other in web design. Again, I'm not a programmer per se, and this has been up for a couple of years, so it's probably advanced quite a bit. But again, just, creating something that's visual, that's telling a little bit of a story was sort of the goal behind this website, or at least this homepage.
So technical question. So if this site is designed using something called parallax that you're not familiar with, how did you go about designing this site and then having someone else build it for you?
It took a lot of back and forth. I mean, I knew what it was. I don't personally program.
Right.
So we have a great partner. We have a great partner who does know what they're doing, and we just kind of mimicked it, in our graphic layouts, and back and forth in terms of timing of when things, have to interplay with others. Like this was just a series of photographs that I took and that we layered on top of each other. So it was a little bit of trial and error. It took a while, but we got there. And in terms of web design, it's just such a moving target. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. Things that, were cool a couple of years ago, become obsolete pretty quickly. Right. And then I think this end part here to me is this line, right? Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So I think that everything that I've always tried to do is, how do you tell the story both verbally, in ways that are simple and direct, and then also with design. I think that one of the first things that people make the mistake of thinking that they have to layer on so many different things, and keeping things simple is really a lot harder than making them overly complicated.
There's an expression that you told me many years ago, which I'm certain I have quoted you and repeated it in the classroom maybe 20 times at least. And you once said to me when talking about design, don't crap it up. And
yeah.
It's really simple and it's a little crass, but at the end of the day, less is always going to be more, regardless of what you're designing, regardless of what career. It's like when you wake up in the morning and you're getting dressed, you're not going to put on lots of jewelry and lots of, hats and shoes. Like, you're going to be very, very selective about what you choose to put together, what you choose to present. So, maybe you'll remember that. Don't crap it up.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes during the creative process, you do have to crap it up a little bit. You put everything on the paper or the pixels on the screen. And it's just knowing when to strip away and sort of refine things into a simpler form. But that takes, practice and time. But
So here's a question.
Mhm.
What happens when you have a client who comes to you and they say, okay, I want this I need this on my website, and I also need this, but then I also need this. And what happens when they come to you and they've got tons of stuff that they want you to include?
Well, that happens all the time.
Okay.
I'd say it happens a little bit less now with the clients that we're working with now. There's a little bit more trust in the work that we do because we've been, working on these projects for a long time. Way back in the day, before I started my own business, and I worked as a creative director in a little marketing company, and I had this boss. And he just, he wanted drop shadows and everything bold and three-dimensional. And like, he crapped that shit up like crazy. Like, he just always wanted so much. And it was a constant battle to like, all right, it's better if we just simplify. But I'd say now they're, maybe they've been trained and they've gotten used to our style of work. But I mean, it does come up in terms of, hold on one second. Sorry, guys.
We can hear the whistling now, which is kind of cool.
I know.
Yeah, so that sound you guys hear is actually the wind whistling through the windows at her house. As you know, we've got this nice snowstorm outside.
It's very whistly. But clients do tend to, especially now that I'm doing so much work in healthcare, there is this desire to sort of say everything, but it's a constant battle. So this is some of our work. It hasn't been updated in a while. We've recently taken some things off, but the more recent work is at the top, which is more healthcare oriented. But if you go down to some of the more fun stuff that I did in my past life. So the Bodies campaign, for example, if you click on that.
I actually clicked on this one yesterday, and I was wondering, I was asking the students if they've seen any of the work in New York. Oh, it was years ago. It was many years ago, but
I think it's still open. I mean, it's funny. So we worked on this with the Bodies exhibition was coming to New York. This is probably like 12, 13 years ago. And it was supposed to be just a temporary show for 6 months in the Seaport, where it was being opened. And I mean, it stayed for like 10 years, but we did. I would say that this project was kind of easy because the visuals were so intense. So we came up with some good headlines and copy, but we just plastered the city with, posters, bus sides, we projected onto buildings. They were on those trucks. We did this fun plastic bag. I don't remember what it said anymore. It was clever, but I can't remember
suddenly
anymore.
what to wear doesn't seem so important.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
And you put that on, but you put that on a garment bag for like dry cleaning.
Dry cleaning, correct? Yeah.
Have any of my students seen this exhibit down at the Seaport by chance?
No.
It's pretty cool.
I've been there. I went ice skating there.
Oh, you did go down there?
Yeah, like in the building that like glows and stuff.
Okay.
I've been to, and I did the ice skating on the roof.
Okay. So you went to this building, but you didn't see the exhibit.
I did see those. You have to pass that in order to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I do think it's still there. I mean, it was up for way longer than they anticipated. And it's in like every city now, this campaign. So this was two scientists basically came up with this method of taking dead bodies basically and putting some kind of like plastic preservation material into the body so that they can, preserve them and slice them open and do all these crazy things. So it was kind of controversial at the time, I think, because there was questions about whether or not they were using, there was like Chinese prisoners that had been used for some of them. Like, so it was a little sketchy.
People obviously that had donated their bodies to science, right?
No, that's the problem. That was kind of, I think, the controversy is that, I don't think it was ever confirmed that they were fully, yeah, exactly. If it was consensual, but I don't know. It wasn't, it wasn't my problem. It happened kind of after when all of that stuff emerged, but
right.
It was really cool. It was a cool exhibit and it was fun to work on. And it was fun to see your work all over the city. So I'd say that was a fun project to work on.
And you could design for different locations. Interesting. Not just paper.
Right. And once upon a time, I worked in experiential marketing, which was, we did a lot of cool street stuff, street events, stunts, just not your average, just, poster type of thing.
Any of these in here have an example of experiential marketing?
I don't know. The Midori campaign was kind of fun too. That's the one down there. And we did a really fun photo shoot for this. And it was just, it was a sexy thing to work on. But again, it was a bunch of years ago. But, fun photo shoot and creative, a lot of retouching involved. And it was a good campaign. I enjoyed that one. Yeah, go back to work. So actually, why don't you, can you type into a new browser? One of my clients is called Blueprint Medicines, Print Medicines, all one word.com. So these guys are a biotech company in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they are, in the throes of research for very rare cancers. Hit the accept all cookies because then it'll clear up. But you could scroll down, you could click on some of the links in terms of the types of companies that we often work for now. I loved how open they were to pushing the envelope in terms of creativity. And they've just been such a pleasure to work with. A really amazing company of, they've grown a lot and have started to get some of their drugs developed and approved by the FDA. But over the course of
this, so one thing I'm noticing is this also parallax?
There are some parallax, there's some layering. Yeah, parallax. It's called HTML5 layering.
Oh, I think. And this, so like this illustration here, human kinome or kenome, I don't know.
Kinome, yep.
First of all, it's so beautiful. So you've taken a scientific, it's a medical illustration, I guess, is what it falls under, perhaps. So is this an illustration that you did? Is it something that someone in your company did? And how did they make that?
Yes. So we were given, some imagery of these kinomes and, they were kind of badly drawn and not nearly as beautiful, but we were allowed to, re-render them in our own way and turn them into something graphic. So that's, I'm glad you brought that up. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show this one, is so you can take something that's kind of dry, right? High-end science. Go up to the top. I can see if there's some other, these are patients that we shot, in photo shoots. I've gotten to meet some amazing, this woman's was a non-smoker and got stage 4 lung cancer. So they all have really interesting stories, and they're all really brave. So I've had the opportunity of meeting these people, and they're very inspiring. And it's great to be a part of, helping to tell their stories. But yeah, so just, this interest. So this, if you go back up to the top, part of our whole core of their graphic strategy was this lens graphic, right? So that was kind of like our key idea, was helping tell the story of this company that does precision medicine. And we came up with a graphic strategy that we incorporate through, the whole site. Like if you go to click on careers, for example.
I love that the lens is moving. And what do you guys
Mhm.
think about, so they've taken, Fox and Gazelle took the symbol of a lens, and they've used that as a core graphic, probably throughout the entire website we're going to see. But what do you guys think that the lens represents? Like, why did Fox and Gazelle choose that symbol?
Well, I don't know the reason, but it looks like it's from an action movie.
It looks like it's from an action movie. Okay. And well, first of all, Daniel, thank you for unmuting your mic and joining the conversation. Just take a guess. Some of you guys take a guess. There's no, right or wrong answer. What do you think that the lens could possibly represent? And those lines that are moving on the outside of the lens, what does that mean? When, I mean, all of you took digital photography with me, right? So when that lens is moving, what is it doing?
It's focusing.
So why do you
Right.
think they chose a focusing lens as a graphic element?
Because it could focus on different objects or things.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Jen, answer that question. Why did you choose a lens?
So Blueprint, as you see, we design and develop precision medicine. So this is, a sort of an emerging type of biotechnology. As I'm sure and look at how we were able to come up with this, COVID vaccines so quickly. Just go to the main careers page and just scroll down a little bit. That's fine. You don't have to pick on any of those. But again, that lens comes through again and again in different ways, and becomes a really beautiful graphic component of the site. So
Exactly.
anyway,
exactly that what Daniel said. You used the word focus. So
right. So precision medicine is about focusing in on these, very, very small elements of the human form and the human body. I started to say we've got, 2 COVID vaccines, and, those did not come up and be developed and were developed starting back in March. They were developed from research and molecules that have been in laboratories for 20 years. And they were able to apply it to COVID because so much work has been done already. And I think that's one of the things that I learned the most about working with some of these companies is some of them exist for 10, 15 years before they even have any sort of medicine that's approved to sell to the market. It takes a long time to develop these things. But anyway, so that they're a company that's really focused on emerging technologies. And so we wanted to bring that through. Someone said it looked, like a movie. I mean, that's kind of where we were going in terms of trying to bring that cinematic effect to the website.
And these are some more nice graphics. So what do you guys see inside of these symbols? Like, why do you think the designer at Jen's company chose an arrow going to the right for urgency and an arrow going to the top right for optimism? And why do you think they chose 3 circles to represent trust, interlocking circles? Let's hear from someone. Daniel, I appreciate that you weighed in. Can someone else take a stab at that and take a guess? Maybe Nicholas or Melody or Dimitri?
I'm a little slow, miss.
No, you're not. You're not a little slow. You're just a little sleepy. So what do you think about the symbols that were created here to represent these different qualities, right? Thoughtfulness, optimism, trust.
They're different. Because I wouldn't like think of that to put as like a symbol for those things.
Well,
Like mine would have been just common, like, I don't know how to explain it.
What do you think? Let's look at the one for trust, okay? Because that is a symbol that if I gave you that assignment and I said, okay, guys, I want you to come up with a design, a simple design to represent trust. What do you think those interlocking circles? Why did the designer choose that? Just take a guess.
Unity.
Nice.
Awesome. Great. What else?
Connected.
What? Say that again, Daniel.
Connected.
Connectedness. Okay. Read what it says underneath. Can you guys read that? I know the type is a little bit small.
Through collaborations and cooperations, we build and maintain a cohesive team that has multitask responsibilities, a
Mutual
manual respect of different viewpoints and talents. Sorry, I couldn't really see it.
Okay.
It's small. It's small.
Thank you for reading that. So what are some of the words that we see here? Collaboration and cooperation. Maintain
Respect and talent.
a cohesive team, right? Mutual respect of different viewpoints and talents. Okay, so now try to connect those words and those symbols. So already, Daniel, you came up with what? You came up with unity and
Connections.
connections.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you've read the text, now what does the symbol mean to you?
Mutual ground.
Mutual ground. What else? What are some of the words in the text that could be represented in that symbol?
Mutual respect.
Mutual respect. What else? Anyone else?
Teamwork. Collaboration and cooperation.
Yes, collaboration, cooperation. Good. Anyone else? Let's just use the very first word. How does that symbol represent collaboration?
This is not a test. Or is it?
It's just it's a brainstorm, right? So Jen, talk to us now about that symbol and like how does a team of designers, or how does one designer? So yeah, let's talk about a team of designers and brainstorming, trying to come up with something, a symbol to represent an obscure or vague concept.
Sure. Well, I think that, in my work, there is an enormous need for something as basic as an icon. We do a lot of iconography in my business, tons. And, I think this is a really great example of what we were talking about at the beginning. Like, how do you bring something down to its simplest form? But also, design is playing a huge part, right? So you could have some clunky figure of, 3 people shaking hands, and that could say collaboration and trust. And so, finding a way to create something that is graphically beautiful. So here we've obviously incorporated those lens circles on the outside, and then tried to hone down to just the core idea. Optimism is an arrow going up. Urgency is an arrow moving forward. And I have to say that a lot of what is successful about this is the fact that we had a client who was like, yeah, that's cool. You know, I mean, we didn't have them asking us to show 3 people shaking hands to show trust and collaboration.
So they,
But I think
they basically, they trusted you and they trust the design team to say, okay, we're going to simplify 3 people down into 3 circles.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, so this website, to be completely honest, was, you know, a year in the making. And it was a year in the making following a full year and a half of developing this brand. You know, it took a long time, and it wasn't just creating pretty pictures. It was creating that story, creating that promise of who this company is, starting with basic things like, you know, a color palette and a style of, you know, just like the lens. It started with the lens. That was one of our first core bits of materials that we started working on. And in fact, we just updated their brand guidelines document. So it's like a 30-page document that outlines all of the different components of the brand. And it was done 3 years ago, and we just updated it because over those 3 years, the brand has continued to evolve and really take shape. And now we have so many tools and things that we can pull together and create materials. It gets a lot easier. So that initial work is usually the hardest, that planning. If you want to go to another website that we did recently.
I actually, so I'm looking at the logo, which is really lovely. So I'm wondering if you have any, you can't share the screen. I was gonna ask you to open up like an Illustrator file that is connected to this particular website.
Right. I can, you know, as an after, I can send you guys some materials that you can look through if that's helpful, if you want to share with the class.
I would love for you to give my students an iconography assignment. Like,
sure. Okay. That'd be fun.
Yep. Design icons for, I'll let you completely, you know, come up with that assignment, and then to have you critique their work if you would be game for that.
I would love that. Let's just go to another website. This one is, I'm just going to spell it out as THISPNH.com. So this is another website that we did recently for another patient community of people who have a disease called PNH. It's a blood disorder. And this website is designed to sort of be a resource for connections, other people who have the same. It's so rare that like it's very hard to find somebody. Those support groups are a little bit few and far between. But another example of a completely different approach to design and branding. You know, it's built off the corporate brand. Their corporate color is orange, so we had to like create this whole new color palette within, you know, this sort of corporate brand. So is that
something that they said to you, like you've got to stick with orange?
No, it was kind of a given, you know, that we wanted to build off of but we expanded their palette to include other colors. But yes, this sort of reddish orange is their core component. Go to understanding PNH. Click the science. Yeah, click the science. And scroll down. So one of the challenges when you work in you know, you're trying to talk. So if you can click on, either.
They're amazing. Like that's such a great illustration for stem cells and bone marrow.
And you can click on those and they flip around. So and they give you, you know, a little bit of information about, you know, what they are. But my point is that here we are, we had to take something, you know, really complex science, right? And an understanding of biology and create this website, these graphics, all this language to educate people who are not scientists. So just everyday people like you and me, what is happening within the body with this disease, and to be able to tell that story in simplistic graphics like this is pretty cool. Keep scrolling down. This whole page is kind of fun. As you scroll, it continues to build.
Oh,
You know,
those
yeah.
are-
I mean, that took forever to have someone figure out how to do. You know, so you're telling the story of.
Or let's see, what do these dominoes represent?
You want me to tell you? I mean, I might as well tell you because it's complicated.
Well, don't tell me because I've never seen this before and I'm your regular layperson. So I'm just going to read the text.
Okay, go for it.
It says, think of these reactions like dominoes. One piece tips over, which starts a cascading reaction of other falling dominoes. So it seems like a chain reaction of things that happen within the body.
Correct. You know, so as I said, it's a blood disorder, and the body basically attacks its own red blood cells. So they are either destroyed by the liver or the spleen.
These are such pretty simple. Like, that's so pretty to me.
Thanks.
You know, like, how do you, like, the liver and the spleen are probably not the, if you had a photograph of them, they'd probably be pretty gruesome.
They're pretty nasty.
Yeah, nasty to look
Totally.
at. So this is a really simplified, elegant, and pretty way to illustrate. And look at the blood.
Right.
See how simple that's drawn?
And I think, you know, everything that we do it with a specific audience in mind, right? So these are just regular people, patients, their families. You know, things had to be simplified and told in a very, you know, patient-friendly way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do, you know, really complex scientific graphics of, you know, splitting cells, and they look much more realistic, but that audience is different. Maybe that's the audience is doctors, where they really do understand the complexities of science. So every project that we do starts with, you know, who are we talking to, you know, and what are we trying to tell them? And then you figure out how to tell that story in some sort of, you know, graphic way, and through words and language as well. And I think there's one thing that we've learned, especially now in our, you know, time in society, like, people don't read much. This is the age of infographics, right? This is the age of telling stories through visuals. And I think it's been proven scientifically that people retain that information much better when it's told in a visual style, as opposed to, you know, if this was a page of just text, which a lot of companies make that mistake, and they just fill it with lots and lots and lots of words that nobody can really absorb or understand. So I think that's been our success as a company, is being able to tell those stories in a more simplified form.
All of these icons I can see. I mean, the whole site in general is very, as you said, the images are very simple, and so is the text. It's not.
Right. And this is actually a good example if you think about the icons that we just looked at, right, for Blueprint, which were much more abstract. Right. Interlocking circles and arrows, like, they were much more abstract, but there's a more sophisticated audience that's really paying attention to that site, as opposed to this one. So these are a little bit more on the nose, if you will, right? So they're more recognizable in terms of shapes and forms.
More representational and less abstract.
Right, but they're appropriate for this audience, and so that's why it was chosen to do it that way. That makes sense.
Yep. Do any of my students have any questions at all about anything that you've heard or seen so far? Mr. Fogel, you've always got questions for us.
Good morning. I was just observing. It was great work. And it's a pleasure to have you visit our class today. I'm
Thank you.
noticing that your graphic work that you do here, but then I'm loving the pictures behind you. Is that your work?
These?
Yes.
Yeah, actually. Well, one of them is. So,
Stop.
right, we're talking about these here?
Yep, yep.
Okay, so these are both photographs taken on an iPhone.
Wow.
One is my house in New York, down, down at the bottom of the hill of where I live is a little pond. And I took that photo one night last October, right after one of the hurricanes had come through. Like we didn't really get affected by the hurricane, but the sky was really beautiful. And then the other one was up in Cape Cod. My husband was up there and he took that picture with his iPhone, same night, same sky. And I uploaded them to a website called Fracture, and for $100 they would get printed on glass. So great example of just like seeing something that's fun and creative and turning it into artwork for very little effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I don't know if you can see from here on the camera, Mr. Fogel, but when they're printed on glass, it's super cool and slick and like it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's great.
Oh, nice.
They're
Yeah,
cool.
so there are 2 panes of glass. I think that the photo gets mounted or printed from the back.
The back, maybe? Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yep, they're really lovely.
And in terms of just because that question, it makes me think about, feeding that part of your artist self. I won't lie. I work a lot. I work more than I want to. Many hours running this business and, constant demands of clients and emails. And, a lot of it is not super fun all the time. But,
Make
I've been
art for your do you make
right, so I try. So that was my point is whether it's just doing our little tarot card illustrations that we did this summer, just finding ways to incorporate craftiness or art into my life. I have kids and they luckily all like art as well, and so we'll do we try and paint and keep art supplies around. But again, there's so many ways to incorporate creativity into your life and into your career, and you don't have to necessarily pursue a full-on career in art. But if it's something that you like to do, there's always ways to bring it into whether your work or what you do at home.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I love the idea of doing some sort of assignment. Let me think about it a little bit. Everyone works in Illustrator. That's my program, my go-to program personally.
We don't work in Illustrator. Last year, all these seniors right now, the name of this course is AP 2D Art and Design. So they're actually working on a portfolio to submit to the College Board, which will get scored.
Mm-hmm.
And every single student, every single senior is working in the media of their choice. So some people are working in photography, some are illustration by hand, some are incorporating, studio art materials with layers in Photoshop and working digitally. So it's a really big mixed media. Of course, I've got a couple of students focusing on comic illustration.
Cool.
Yeah, it's actually my 11th graders who are in digital art and working exclusively in, not exclusively, but primarily in Photoshop. I would give that icon assignment to my 11th graders. These students, like I said, are all mixed media.
Okay, well, we can think about that too.
Yeah.
But I think having a teacher like Miss Brooks, having people who inspire you in some way, I think makes a huge difference. Just to explore and consider doing something, maybe outside of that norm, and knowing that there are really so many avenues out there for creativity, whether it's photo retouching or
Do you think there are
event design. Like there's so many
Right.
fun things that you can
do you
do.
think there are more careers now in the arts than there were 30 years ago when we started?
Um, Probably, I mean, look at digital, look at, app design, um, animation. There's just the fact that we're living in a time where people are literally self-made, right? You have musicians, artists, YouTubers, people who are creating their own craft without the help of anyone else. So it can be pretty exciting. It can also be very daunting, right? There's just which one do I choose? And I think that, in terms of finding that path, just know that it's there's not going to be a big sign at the front of your journey, but like, this is the way you're going to go, because you're going to zigzag. When I started out, I didn't think I was going to do what I do now at all. At all. I never thought I'd be a business owner. I never thought that I would, really just have a career in creative direction. I thought I was just going to draw pictures forever. And I think that just having your heart open to taking those chances, I think to be successful in as any creative, this is my theory, right? So I have a theory that there are sort of three main components of success in any career, really. So one is talent. Talent's pretty important, but not always. Talent, personality, and that could be you're funny. It could be you're just positive and helpful and empathetic, or your personality is the kind that always raises your hand because you want to learn, or you want to help, or you want to try something new. So I think personality is a huge component to success. And the third thing is luck. And so those three things, talent, personality, and luck, are really important. And the good thing is you really only need two of them, right? Because let's be honest, there's lots of people out there who are successful who have no talent whatsoever. Like actors, any field, any business, they're not very talented, but they either got lucky because they know somebody that got them into the business, or they've just got a great personality and that's how they landed, that job. So I think that just relying on a little faith and, talking to people and going to museums and internships, like whatever you can do to just sort of, take a risk. It's worth it because there really are a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I do think, thank you for that, first of all. I
it's
do
my
think,
own personal formula.
yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I do think that there are a lot more opportunities to be in a lot more careers for creatives to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah, and not that they don't come with sacrifice. I would much rather just be, painting or drawing all day and never be on email, but that's not my reality. So it's finding that balance and knowing that some of it's going to be really cool and fun, and some of it's going to be a little bit, more boring, but they all kind of work together. Yeah.
Well, I love that talent, personality, and luck. Those are
Mhm.
the trifecta.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that as well, being an artist. And I realized that I had the talent, but there were certain skills as a dancer. I didn't have the height. Uh, I wasn't tall, but I had the energy. I had the smile, but I had to fight in order to get a job at these auditions, because it was like I was a Southern boy who was dark skinned, very, very dark, with full of talent, but it was like, where's the look? So not having the image, but definitely the personality had to come out more when I moved to New York.
Well, you have got
Yeah.
that personality, 100%, Mr. Fogel, which is why you and I get along so well.
Thank you, Melvin. That was great.
You're welcome.
Well, if last call for any questions from my students, anyone? Well, if you think of anything, you can definitely ask me, and then I'll see Jen again. I'll be speaking to her again.
She likes to text me at 5 a.m.
Yep, she is my
Yeah.
best friend.
Well, thank you for having me today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you
and
so much for the
great to
tour of your work.
see so many faces. Enjoy the snow if you can get out there, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Or
Merry
next
Christmas.
week.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Happy
Be well, be safe.
everyone. Thank
Hopefully
you so
COVID
much.
is on its way out. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you for your
Bye.
time. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.